Changes between the boy and Gardaí at his home. The boy, who can't be named due to his age, has pleaded not guilty to her murder but guilty of manslaughter. The trial is expected to last until the end of next week. And Bruce Willis is stepping away from acting because of health issues. He's been diagnosed with aphasia, which can impact on your ability to communicate. That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. For a cheap Easter break, fly to the beaches of Spain, Italy, Portugal or Greece.
Cold and frosty tonight. A few wintry showers in northern and eastern coastal areas. Lowest temperatures of -3 to 0 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Ashley Keane won herself €32,000 when she answered Barry's call today. Could you be next? Our cash machine winner. Well, if you fancy being in the draw to win €9,481.78, here is what you need to know. To win the chance of winning, all you have to do is text the word play to 57599. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon. Then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make a call. And if your phone rings, answer it within those crucial 5 rings. Tell him the exact amount in euro and cent, and we'll pay all of that cash straight into your bank account. So remember the amount: €9,481.78. Text play to 57599. Over 18s only. Text cost €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You are playing across the Go Loud network of stations. And terms and conditions are on newstalk.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game? It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Yeah, welcome along to Thursday night's football show. Richie McCormick here with you for the duration. Lots to get to, including looking back on last night's 1-0 win over Lithuania at the Aviva Stadium, the booing of Harry Maguire, the resurrection of Ireland's under-21s under Jim Crawford, and the potential, or otherwise, for an All-Ireland football team. That's all to come. Joined in the studio for the duration tonight by the Irish Independent's football correspondent, Dan McDonnell. Dan, as always, welcome to the studio.
Richie,
I don't know how much of the chat you caught just before the news. We were talking about the drinks culture in the Aviva Stadium for rugby, and rugby alone, it would seem, and what you make of all that, because it is an issue for rugby fans, and it's one that doesn't seem to be going away, but is affecting a sizable proportion, judged by the reaction of people who go to these matches and their enjoyment of them.
Yeah, no, I know sort of Rory O'Connor would have been talking about this recently, and I see Jerry Thornley had a piece on it, and I've heard sort of various debates on it. I mean, it's one now where obviously these animals that go to football matches are now getting beer at games when that wasn't allowed before, and we'll see if that spins out a debate, around the sort of the situation there. I think you were at the FAI Cup final,
yeah, and
the service was available there, and that was obviously maybe some people were sort of dipping in and out for that. I don't know. I mean, like I'm not a rugby fan, but my brother got me a ticket for one of the All Blacks games a couple of years ago. I mean, I will clarify, I felt like a complete fraud going to the game. I offered it to all my rugby supporting friends, and they were all sorted for this match. So I went to it, and I was like sitting on third inside seat, and I mean, I was struck by the amount of people that were going out during the game, to the point where it's like, I mean, rugby is sort of to me, like, you have to sort of follow it closely if you want to go and engage with it. Like, it was quite a tight game. There's a lot going on, and I just don't understand the psyche of thinking now might be a good time to go and go up and get a drink at this stage, and get everyone to stand up on your row while you go out, to the point it just becomes a complete distraction.
Yeah.
And to the point of, like, are you even watching the game? And I mean, is there more people that are going to the games as social events? I've heard that opinion expressed. There might be something in that. It's probably more sort of culturally ingrained, though, that you can go to the match and have drinks, like the rugby game, and have drinks. Making the point off air there, I remember, so I went to college in UCD, so when even some of the early Leinster games in Donnybrook, when it was really starting to take off, and maybe they'd play some of their lesser games in Donnybrook, maybe,
yeah.
I can't remember.
Like the Scarlets or something.
Yeah,
like that,
I remember going to some game in a Friday, and again, to me, it was like, wow, this is a real novelty. You go to football in Germany and get beers and stuff and stand at the seats or stand at your spot, and this was quite similar. and maybe it's just way more the norm. It's what you do during the game. But I have to say, for me now, it is a complete source of annoyance, and there's a big logic in shutting it down during the game. But obviously, it generates loads of cash, and that's going to be the bottom line.
Yeah, when you've got associations who are dependent on money at the moment, like now more than ever, with like deficits to make up for over the last couple of years, the IRFUs in particular.
And would they profit from it, or would it be the stadium? I actually don't know the answer to that. I know they're all part of the stadium company, to be fair, so as in they're all partners in it, and they all have a vested interest in it, I suppose.
But nobody would have made money anyway in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
so
and this is it. It's been closed for so long. They want to milk what they can out of the events, and I mean, I do understand that to a degree, but it's interesting, I suppose, that this debate has been stirring about the sort of the match day experience and how it is. And like, you would be struck as well. I mean, some of the individual prices for some of these games are quite steep. I mean, including some of the Ireland international ones. Now, the flip side of that is the season ticket value is extraordinarily good. But if you don't go for the season ticket option, I mean, you were looking last week, there was, some of the premium tickets for the Belgium game going at, say, €120. It's a pricey experience. Wow. But from my perspective, then it's like, well, then watch the game, I
think that's where a lot of the root of frustration comes from, is that if you're seen to be, from the outside looking in, especially, you don't even have to be in the stadium, but if you're listening into the show tonight and you're hearing about people who've gone to the Ireland-Scotland game, or people who have gone to the Belgium game and have paid north of €100 a ticket, you're aghast at thinking, well, if you've paid that money and can pay that money to go, why would you ignore what you've gone to see? And I think that's the disconnect that people have, is that people who haven't gone to the thing are more annoyed by people who have gone and are quote unquote wasting the ticket by getting up and going and getting gargle half the time.
Yeah, I suppose we're just getting, there are obviously other countries where the sporting culture is such that the drinks come to you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to get up. It's sort of like it's brought around.
Ball game in America.
Yeah, I remember going to a European game in Croatia years ago, and the absolute novelty as a supporter, and the absolute novelty of like sort of trays of beer being carried up the steps during a game, and you just reach out and get one.
Yeah.
But again, like, from my perspective, probably in football, like, alcoholic games has sort of been, part of sort of, football fans being sort of stigmatized to a degree. Like, it's generally a no-no.
Boozed up soccer fan.
Yeah, they cause this. I mean, you see people on the pitch may not have had a drink, but wearing a rugby jersey or whatever. It's like, I mean, where's the decorum here? Where's the decorum of the what's happening? But I don't know, though. It's sometimes these things gather a bit of momentum as a debate, but it really is about people's enjoyment. I mean, could you at certain tiers of the ground close the bars? So then people, when they're making the decision about, it's like smoking or non-smoking, like you go to like a drinking or a non-drinking section, where you in this particular sort of tier or whatever, it doesn't happen. I mean, can you do something like that? Probably difficult to manage, I would have thought, but it is frustrating for someone who's there, who's trying to watch it, and you have to get up every few minutes for someone to just come back. And then
there's a text in, there's a kernel of a point that I kind of agree with in this. Not necessarily the way it's made, though. Paul in Blackrock texted to say, lads, stop fooling ourselves. We are terrible quote-unquote fans. I've been to soccer matches in the UK and Europe, and to soccer GA rugby matches in Ireland, and the atmosphere is like chalk and cheese. For us, matches are a social occasion. In other countries, supporting their team is their religion. Just enjoy being able to attend anything, says Paul. I'm trying to formulate this properly in my head, and we'll probably make a garbled mess of it, but fan culture in Ireland is so diffuse because a lot of people have interests in a lot of things in this country, whereby in certain countries they will be focused on one team and one team alone, whereas here you will have like listeners to the show who like enjoy Leinster matches, would go and watch Meath games and then support Liverpool or something like a
Sunday
that.
Sports section sort of
exactly.
interest in
sport. But by the nature of that is you've only so much passion to go around, and you're not going to be as vehement in your support of all of those things because it's humanly impossible to be. So your attitudes are going to be different to a different country, and your attitudes and the way people support teams in this country is always going to be second hand by the nature of the fact that a lot of the sport has been imported anyway.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, yeah, it is one of these discussions that you have to be careful of, like, sort of generalising broadly, you know, people. But I mean, you know what I'd probably say, like, you know, you can go to League of Ireland grounds, particular grounds, and there will be a brilliant atmosphere, you know. But that's because probably some people, for some people, that atmosphere wouldn't be for them, because it could almost be too tribal, you know. It wouldn't be for them, you know. Some of the sort of the aggressive posturing and how they carry themselves, and is that in some people's eyes not what they associate with a sporting event in this country. Like, you know, we talk about we're proud, you know, of how, like, fans of the sort of you know, the competing counties in the big GA match can sort of sit next to each other, you know, and mingle with each other. But actually then what people really think about of atmosphere is something like the Hill, because it's sort of a form of segregation. You know, you might have some...
It's so partisan there.
Yeah, it's very partisan, and, like, that's where atmosphere comes from to some degree. It's one group and the other, and yeah, maybe there's something in that like, people are there's more of a culture of being sort of sporting observers and going to, in some cases, going to the match rather than to go to match to actually participate in it, you know. And there obviously is parts of Europe where you'd go with football where, like, the supporters are part of the event. Like, you go to Legia Warsaw or PAOK or somewhere like that, where they are, I mean in some cases, like, you'll have ultras that are practically, like, negotiating with the club, you know. And it's a cultural thing. You see Nigeria go out of the World Cup last night, and there's just an absolute there's chaos on the pitch,
yeah.
You know, and it goes absolutely crazy. And as I said, you know, there could be league games you go to here where, like, 90 minutes they're singing and chanting, but it's a smaller group, as we know. And, like, you will have maybe portions to them that might travel on the Ireland away games. Like, at Ireland away games, by contrast, and it's probably, again, it's slightly different. Like, it's probably the only code where we have, say, a travelling support to go away in an allocation. Again, even the rugby games away, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's like there's the Irish end with 8,000 Irish fans there. It's mingled around a bit more.
People, there are to a degree there is an element of that, but more often than not, the case in point you would point towards is France playing in the Principality just 2 weeks ago now at this stage, whereby the French supporters were bloody everywhere in that stadium.
It seems to be the case with me with and maybe that's just how the tickets are sold and so on.
There would be an element of this is their section, but you will have
they'll be everywhere anyway.
Dispersed
okay,
anyway, yeah.
But, like, by contrast, you know, it would have been in Baku in October for the Ireland game, and you have whatever, I don't know, a couple hundred Irish fans in a big
corner up away from everything,
in a big empty stadiums, but it was outnumbered only by security guards. But, you know, you could have. You know, maybe we sort of hope everything goes as much to plan as it can this year. It's obviously a complicated group, but, like, when Ireland play in Scotland, you know, in Hampden Park, there'll be an Ireland section. It'll be penned together. There'll be noise. There'll be atmosphere all the way through, and it's something that's maybe different to what you might have in maybe around other codes and how the atmosphere plays itself out. And I mean, the Aviva is such a the way in which it's designed, the way in which it operates, like, it's you know, it's, you sort of try and get in the lift to go down. It's like floors and floors of hospitality and suites, and how it's all laid out is it's very much about the spectator experience, but it's not necessarily atmosphere based in how it's actually created, you know, and that obviously can be an issue on match night, that I can understand why sometimes it just meanders along for some people.
The argument would be that atmosphere doesn't generate revenue for these individual associations, but in the same instance, on a long enough timeline, it does. Because if you see, like, for instance, like, there was 91,553 in the Camp Nou tonight for the Women's Champions League quarter-final. Like, that won't happen every game, but what it will do is it will make people think that this is an occasion that they can go to. And similarly, if you see an atmosphere at the last Ireland game, you would think that it's going to be an occasion and an event and a happening to be at the next time one rolls around. So ultimately, atmosphere will end up generating revenue because it will attract new customers.
Yeah, it's true, but I suppose, I mean, if you think of it, and again, like, who am I to talk about rugby, but I can see that the demand for Six Nations is such that really, like, they're generally going to sell. You know what I mean? It's not as if they're vulnerable and things dropping to suddenly, like, to 20,000 or something. That doesn't appear to be the case at all, but where they're at, you know. But I mean, you can adopt a sort of a sport v sport approach to it and how you discuss it. I mean, it's obviously a problem in certain Premier League grounds that you hear. The more attractive Premier League clubs have more day trippers and people visiting them who are sort of tourists dropping in for the game, who don't necessarily know how it all plays out, the noise and the sort of atmosphere. And you would hear that being raised as a complaint, whereas you go down the leagues sometimes and you can go to a championship venue.
Yeah.
or a place that doesn't have fans sort of flying in massive numbers from around the world for their games.
Mates might have gone over to non-league games.
It can be way more intense. Yeah, it can be a completely different animal. Yeah.
We like the rugby, or the football show listeners may be saying we loving this in a minute, talking about rugby and rugby.
Well,
fans,
I mean,
kind of stuff.
it's all part of. I assume a lot of them go to games and have their own opinions on it.
Yeah, we all live in the same section of the sport pages anyway. But I keep almost referring to last night as the scoreless draw with Lithuania, because for so long last night it looked like it was going to be, but ultimately it was decided by a bit of a Troy Parrott special last night. Your general thoughts first of all on the game? Yeah,
I mean, I suppose it's probably good for Stephen Kenny to be in a place where, I mean, even if it had finished 0-0, there would have been a bit of a backlash, but I think there would have been a broader acceptance that I suppose these things happen to a degree. No, I actually don't think that. Well, I'm not suggesting anyone's saying that. Like the Parrott goal, great that it happened. Superb strike. His confidence, quite striking when he come on. But probably, it's still what happened before. It doesn't. Maybe it was all very forgettable, but I think there's a relevance to it too. That there's certainly no doubt that an issue Ireland have is when they're at home against sort of weaker teams, that they just have issues with this type of game. I mean, yes, they did pull Qatar apart last year. They started well, and then Qatar looked a little bit fatigued from a sort of a mad scheduling run that they've had. Other teams that were sort of plugged into it, Azerbaijan and Luxembourg and now Lithuania, albeit in a friendly, they sort of say, okay, Ireland, see what you can do. And I think even as this Irish team becomes slightly better known, because, for example, anyone scouting Ireland before last June wouldn't have seen Ogbene play, for them. You will see that Ireland actually operate with a little bit more pace now. So how do you counter pace? You can sort of sit in, defend a bit deeper against them, and all of a sudden someone who sort of breaks the lines might not be as effective. And actually, as you saw in terms of time in a couple of his runs last night, he's maybe not necessarily a natural striker in terms of he's not playing every week with his club, so maybe he just didn't get his decision making right at times. So teams are going to, it's great talking about how Ireland's style is changing and trying to play a little bit differently, but of course teams will then study this new Irish style and decide how they're going to play against them. And in a Euros campaign next year, if Ireland are going to qualify, they're going to have to be efficient and better when it comes to dropping, to not dropping points against teams below them. It's great they won in Luxembourg and in Azerbaijan, but having been at both of those games, those teams were a little bit more braver and having a go than they were in the Dublin games. Particularly Azerbaijan maybe, and the Irish goals sometimes almost got them on the break a small bit. So, and particularly Luxembourg, the two late goals with Jason Knight as well, they were on the counters. So it's something to be wary of, like how to play with a little bit higher tempo and be a little bit more incisive and not just sort of overdoing it in games of this nature.
Tempo is the thing really that does undo these kinds of setups. Even I was doing the commentary on Chelsea Newcastle a couple of weeks ago for the show, and Newcastle went to Stamford Bridge with a very definite and a very clear game plan to try and frustrate Chelsea and pick off whatever chances they could, get a knock on from Chris Wood and see what they can pick from there. And then maybe if the last 10 minutes stick on Alan Saint-Maximin and try and benefit. But it was only when Chelsea actually managed to start playing through the lines with pace that they managed to really start to get at Newcastle. And that's, I'm not saying we're Chelsea, but when you do play these kinds of sides who are willing to sit back and just absorb as much possession and chances as they can and see what they can nick, there does become an onus on the team that is bossing possession and is in charge of the ball to play with a bit of tempo and to try and catch them on the hop, because that's usually the way to break these teams down. And we seem to be, even with Ogbene in the side, we seem to be lacking in the ability to do that because not everybody is necessarily on that page.
Yeah, and it could be argued, is Ogbene suited to all of those type of fixtures? Is Ogbene all about sort of taking the ball quick to feet and close control? Maybe not. Maybe his strengths are more about, again, a team that's asking questions of Ireland a bit more, and then you can clip it and you have your sort of out ball and it just completely turns the game and gets the opposition sort of defence turned. So, I mean, this is the thing. It could be horses for courses in terms of, picking players for certain games. And that's the balance. I mean, if you want to be really kind about the Irish display last night, the kindest version of sort of interpreting the performance is that they did need to do what you said, but because there was 6 changes, a front 3 you hadn't really played together before, from the start of a game, and even the Brown Erhin thing, like Brown hadn't been around for a good part of the last year for sort of COVID and other reasons, that he just didn't quite have the understanding. Whereas maybe against Qatar in that particular game, there was just where they pulled them apart. It just happened a lot. There
was a bit more rhythm
a bit
to
quicker,
it.
and you probably do miss someone like Josh Cullen last night, who's sort of good at getting the passes going and maybe moving it a small bit quicker. But I mean, so it's important, and maybe like it's a sort of a good lesson to take going forward. Like you see Armenia got done 9-0 in Norway last night. Now I know they're a bit of hit and miss, but they lost 5-0 at home to North Macedonia recently. Like they've conceded a ton of goals, so you suspect, at some stage they're probably going to look at it and think, right, if it does happen that Armenia come to Dublin in June, which is possible, Ireland are going away there, but it's possible the game later in the year could be brought forward. You have to maybe be prepared that a team who's had a bad run might decide to do something slightly different, and in that context,
6-4-0.
Well, in that context, you have to think, okay, well, what lessons were actually learned from Lithuania in terms of what combinations you need for it. So maybe actually a game that seemed a little bit meaningless might have some meaning if you learn from it in those games.
Playing a big man up front like a Will Keane might necessarily be the most profitable route to goal against a team like that.
Yeah, I mean,
not picking on him, but
no, it was a tough evening for him. But I'm not sure if the perception of Keane is really that he's a big man. I mean, he is, like, he obviously is, like, he has a presence and stuff. But listening to Kenny talk about him, he acknowledged he had a bad game. Didn't happen for him. He's more talented than that. But he was actually speaking beforehand. He was actually speaking about sort of his link play.
He's a deeper line player than people would expect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I think the intention would be that maybe he could come a little bit deeper, and then some runners off him. But as it happened, the type of big man you needed in that game was someone who devours crosses into the box, because there was loads of crossing opportunities. He did look a little bit nervous as well too, and wasn't sort of particularly assured, and it's disappointing for someone that's informed. But I'd be sort of slow to condemn him or to reach some conclusion. Oh, that's it. He can't do it at this level. I don't think that's the case at all. But it was a tough night for him, and certainly you'd imagine if Ireland were playing again in 3 days' time, it'd be Troy Parrott that would be starting in that scenario, and not Keane.
Yeah, Parrott has done himself the world of good. I know Keith Andrews, in his press conferences, you would have been at them, was talking him up. I know in response to a question about him, granted, but he talked about how he's grown as a player and as a man, I guess, during this loan spell at MK Dons, and having this run of games. It started pretty slow for him, but he has actually gotten his feet under the table there. Run of games, being able to put in a string of decent performances. I think it's like 6 or 7 goals now at this stage, and just as many assists. He's proving his abilities finally in a more regular sense. Yeah, I mean, there's such interest in Parrott because of how much he was talked about at 17. I mean, we all played our part, like media and everyone got very excited by it. But I mean, it wasn't just... We won the Euros last year because of him, Dan. But it wasn't just Irish interest as well. There was English interest too. There was a lot of buzz around Spurs. I mean, Mourinho was getting asked about him, and he wasn't getting asked about him by Irish journalists on Jolly. So didn't even get the chance to do that, But the point is that his exploits at youth level were very exciting. So it did bring attention and interest. I went over to watch him play for Spurs when he was 17 against Colchester in that cup game, and they were getting proper questions. Pochettino was being asked about him, and why aren't you picking him? Yeah, and Mourinho got a bit of that. And his loans have been disappointing. They've been poor. But I was sort of writing a bit about this for tomorrow. What's striking is that both Kenny and Keith Andrews have gone on out of their way to almost praise his character, to speak about how popular he is in the group. And there probably has been an undertone around maybe discussion of Parrott, what's happening, a sort of suggestion of, is his head fully screwed on? You see he's gone on a few nice holidays. I've been pictured with a couple of people. Typical flashy young footballer kind of stuff. That's sort of, that can lead to a perception being cemented, but they've gone out of their way to make the point that he's not another Stephen Ireland. Very popular within the group, was willing to go and train with the 21s last year when he was injured, whereas some other senior players
There's a situation recently where it seems Michael Obafemi wasn't mad and gone back to play for the 21s. There's maybe a bit of he said, she said on that. But certainly, like, Parrott's application and commitment to playing for Ireland seems to have really impressed them. They've kept him around all the time. And they just like him as a person, it seems, you know. And maybe he's a real project player for them because they know someone with his talent, Ireland can't afford to let him slip. I mean, this is the irony of a situation. I mean, Spurs aren't really that invested in working out for Parrott. I mean, it would be brilliant if it did, but they've got the money and the options to replace him. There'll always be another one like that coming through. Whereas Ireland can't afford Troy Parrott to sort of
slip through the net
and to lose his way. But the reports at MK Dons where he lost his place mid-season, he was struggling for a while, that he seems to have sort of, as Andrews put it the other day, he sort of hit the reset button. He's got himself back, got himself into the right mindset. And in fairness to Parrott, he was saying it, like he is only 20. You know, he was a teenager until last month, and there's almost a sense of what's happened to this guy. Where's it gone wrong? You know, and we've had Irish strikers who have had great careers. Like John Walters didn't play for it until he was 27, and Parrott's 20. So. And I know, like, sometimes the stars can burn brightly early and it can go out just as quick, but he's so young still that if he is actually doing the right things around football, which it seems like, or hopefully he is, then, I mean, if he can develop in his potential and be a huge player for Ireland.
A move away from Spurs, I think, this summer probably looks, I don't want to say inevitable.
I wouldn't say inevitable, no.
But it would be certainly in his interest to consider it.
I know he's got a bit more time in his contract. I think if it's the case that he has 2 more years there, I think there might be an option, and I think that we'll see about that. Why rush it? I think a good strong loan somewhere else next year. But 1 year to go, that's when it's sort of sink or swim time in terms of Spurs. I don't think there's a mad rush. I'd rather he had went for a good loan, which obviously, if it's not working out, you have the option, as he did last year, to for that loan to be cut short after 6 months to go somewhere else, then go somewhere permanently and make the wrong call. You know, unless someone comes up and says, right, we're going to make you the centrepiece of our team at a good level here. But I feel like he's got to do more at club level to get the type of move you would want him to get, if you know what I mean.
Would you almost like to see him go back to MK Dons from next summer?
If they got promoted,
because
there's a good chance.
That kind of continuity can only help a player, because that's the kind of thing that he probably wouldn't get if he was to stay at Spurs, or if it was obviously enough if he was to just go to another championship club. Yeah,
and the way MK Dons played, they were a very sort of possession based, attractive team. They went for a manager, a little bit of an offbeat appointment, who'd been working in Belgium because they wanted a particular type of coach. There's a couple of clubs in England that are like that at the moment. They're very style based. Swansea is another where Ryan Manning is, Obafemi of course as well. The type of managers they're looking for, and they hired from MK Dons like Russell Martin. So that would be a good fit, but probably if they get promoted. I think, to be fair, he's gone to League One, you'd want to see him do it in the Championship next, or maybe, you know, continental Europe could be an option.
It's suddenly become this great option for players now, it seems, because like the Ebicelli and a Banquet cases prove what's out there. And
it does. It does. But I mean, to be honest, sometimes with that, it's the financials that stops people from going there too. I mean, there's such money available in the Championship and even upper end in League One that that can be an issue sometimes. People would say, I should go to Holland or I should go there. I mean, sometimes the difference that an offer, it could be like, I mean, it could be sort of 50%, you know, and it's well and good to say you should go somewhere for the opportunity, but pragmatism will take hold.
A job's a job.
Yeah.
What did you make of Manning last night, by the way?
I thought he was decent, yeah. I mean, the thing about Ryan Manning is that he's had this really unusual conversion. I remember watching Ryan Manning play in a League of Ireland promotion playoff for Galway FC, as they were in their brief incarnation before Galway United. Of course, they're having their big Luke Comer related vote tonight, which is big stuff for the Comer brothers trying to take over Galway. It could be interesting, but I'm sure Johnny will be on about that at some stage. But he was a number 10. He was a sort of and like one of those number 10s, they always the perception of the number 10 is, are they a bit flaky, a bit in and out?
Yeah.
And now he's playing left centre half for Swansea. He's playing more of his football. So actually, when he went inside for the last 30 minutes last night, he did well. He's quite comfortable in that position. The game's all ahead of him. What you would say is, it's a game last night was a game where defenders who are good on the ball to shine because they weren't being put under pressure defensively. And obviously the real challenge is you're very good on the ball, but can you do that while being asked constantly to go the other way and to be defensively disciplined? And you know, it was easy for some of the players last night, in the nicest way possible, easy to get on the ball and pick their passes. But still, you know, you see guys get in that position and they overhit and they underhit. And I thought Manning did fine. Some of his crosses were decent, and he had sort of one good defensive interception towards the end and a sort of a rare break. But he's 25, I think, Manning, and his career has had a few little hiccups. But again, I mentioned Swansea. He's playing in a team that play in a particular way that is probably conducive to like transferring over to Ireland. But it may well be that his time as an Irish regular might just be a year or two away. You've still got McLean, who's going nowhere. You've got Enda Stevens still. But they're both north of 30 now. And it might just be that Manning's time is maybe 2 years' time as opposed to maybe now.
They seem to have been more careful about how people are introduced. Like I know you touched on during the week the Conor Ronan situation, and a lot of people, when they saw his name in the squad, particularly given the fact that these are two friendlies, that it's a cert that Ronan's going to get some minutes. But they, as you pointed out, I think they're like within your first camp, you don't necessarily get capped.
This is since last year. Yeah, there's been a pattern definitely. Like, okay, Jamie Maguire I think played against Andorra, but then didn't play against Hungary. That was his first camp. Ogbene was in that camp. It was his first camp, and you look how big a player Ogbene is now, and he got off the bench for a few minutes.
A minute against Hungary.
A minute against Hungary. He still did something in the minute.
Yeah.
But Will Keane was there in October, was being left out of squads. I mean, he might have had a little niggle, but still. And again, Mark Sykes and Ronan have come in this time and not played. I think there's a thing there of making people earn caps, not just throwing them out. And I know you're always going to get grief because like fans like new things, you know.
Shiny toy to them.
Yeah.
Shiny toy.
Irish football fans like uncapped players as much as like rugby fans like beers at the match. You know what I mean? Like it's just, there's, no matter if you don't even think you want it, there's an inclination to think that actually maybe I want one of them now. And it's almost like the squad is named. It's like, where's Ronan? It's a disgrace. Where's, why hasn't Sykes played? Because there's such desire to see them. Now, to be fair, there is an argument with Ronan's skill set that a game at home to Lithuania would have
been ideal,
suited him. But I think there's a thing in that where Kenny's big on trying to make a settled group. That's something he missed so much. And across Kenny's career, he's been at his best working off smaller squads as opposed to like massive rotation. International, it's different. Obviously, you can't control some things. You'll lose guys. You don't see them for months on end because of bad luck and badly timed injuries. But I think there's an element of, if he's played X amount of players and he has the likes of Brown and Hurahan and Manning and other players around, and even those who were on the bench last night but didn't get on, like Malumbi, I'm just not sure if he's going to just, and because they're not new to us anymore, or like whatever, get rid of them. They're not as exciting. But I don't think it's in his interest to just chuck them all to the bench, to the stands very quickly. But I can be sure if like Sykes, heard Sykes has made a good impression. Ronan's a good player. Kenny knows what he's about from the 21s. I'd be sure if they get back in the summer, you might just see them move up the pecking order.
Has there been any kind of movement as regards because I heard Kenny being asked about this before the Belgium game, and he seemed a little bit in the dark because there's no word from UEFA or there's no word from the FAI as regards to what complexion June is going to have. It all depends on what actually is going to happen within Ukraine as a country.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, it's just like you don't want to speculate on these things because it's because you don't want to be. I think, to be fair, I think Kenny is conscious of that, and I think people in the FAI are conscious of that. You have to read the room and how you approach this.
We want to know who we're playing in June, for God's sake.
Like it is inconvenient, but I mean, really, but the reality of it is as well, like in the football administration world, like FIFA are looking at. I mean, Ukraine are meant to play a World Cup playoff against Scotland. Like Wales have played a semi-final. They don't know who they're playing in the final. And Ireland, on the next international window, the next date is Ireland playing Ukraine. If Ukraine are back playing international football at that stage, which, I mean, it would be great because that would actually suggest that a situation has improved in some way. They're going to be playing the World Cup game before anything. So it's very hard to see that game in Dublin on the 4th. That's why I'm saying the chat might be that Armenia at home in September gets brought forward to be in Dublin in June. That would give you at least 3 games. Ireland are meant to play away to Ukraine. it was then likely to be moved to a neutral venue. But again, I mean, that's just so far down the pecking order. But to answer your question, there's no clarity on that yet.
You can't really push for it either.
No, I mean, the World Cup draw is this Friday.
It is.
You can be sure that FIFA people there are going to be asked what's actually happening here with this, because there's going to be a spare spot in the World Cup draw, which is sort of rare.
It's the people at Panini I feel bad for. They've got to create
stickers
4
are going
extra
to be
pages
all over the place. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they're probably going to roll that out. How far off did they produce those things?
That's what I'm wondering now, because like before, when you look, what is it? Oh, it used to be here over my shoulder. The World Cup 90 sticker album.
Is that the Orbis one there? Is it?
Yeah, it's behind those things. But that had Denmark in it, who obviously didn't qualify.
Oh.
So this sticker album that's going to come out now, to cover bases, must surely have Wales, Scotland, Ukraine in there.
Yeah, and I mean, and they're trying to publish it with the Christmas market this time as well too, which is going to be all over the place. You have to get your spots in there. Oof. This is a whole new sticker album issue. When has a sticker album ever come out in December before? November before? Yeah,
it's got to be October, November to get the proper lead in to get the stickers.
You can't really get it for someone as a Christmas present, you know.
I might. You can't tell me what I can and can't get for Christmas.
You can if you want, but it's
listen, if herself wants a sticker album for Christmas, Dan, you can be damn sure I'm going to get it for her. Of course, the football show is brought to you by Sky. Catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. There's still lots to get to. Of course, the under-21s result in Sweden last night among those things, and that'll be on the way next.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
The Pat Kenny Show.
Will Smith and Chris Rock at the Academy Awards. So, Bill, what did you make of the scene?
Well, I'll put my hand up here and admit that I read Will Smith's autobiography. And when you read it, you realise that this is an ego out of control. And this was just another example of his ego out of control.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Matter Private Network.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on News Talk.
If something's free, why would you turn it down? I mean, a free haircut from a 5-year-old. Oh, no. Or a free sample of onion paste. Oh. Well then, how about a free tour of your neighbour's new shed? Oh, sounds, well... OK, look, they were bad examples. But how about a free eye test and free glasses from the €69 range at Specsavers with your PRSI? Well, that sounds like something to smile about.
Book an appointment or find out more at specsavers.ie.
Did you know that right now, Carew protects the public by regulating over 22,000 health and social care professionals in Ireland? So far, registers are open for dietitians, dispensing opticians, medical scientists, occupational therapists, optometrists, physiotherapists, podiatrists, radiographers, radiation therapists, social workers, and speech and language therapists. If you are receiving care from one of these regulated professions, you can visit our website, carew.ie, to check if they are registered.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.
Yeah, welcome back. Wednesday night's football show. Richie here with you, joined by Dan McDonnell, the football correspondent for the Irish Independent. We were talking about brand new shiny things just before the break and the potential for them to be dropped into the Republic of Ireland squad. Several of them on display yesterday evening in Borås in Sweden.
Yeah.
Great results. Not necessarily a deserved one, judging by the 90 minutes of play, I would say.
No, it was backs against the wall. But I mean, you say the shine thing. The main thing is to keep all of these players with 21s for the moment. And there's an argument for trying to give one or two back in June, rather than the shiny things is people saying, "Oh, we need to get sort of," and he wasn't there, but like Festi, we need to get them all into the senior squad. It's like, there's actually an argument that the last time Ireland, when Kenny's under 21 team left, and then he went and took the senior job. And because of circumstances with COVID last October and November of 2020, they called up Knight and O'Shea. And of course, the senior team is top of the list and the players wanted to go because there's a chance to play senior level. But Ireland were so close to getting a playoff. And that would be great for development. Imagine Ireland in an under-21 European Championships. That'd be a brilliant thing to get behind, And so what they've done now by winning away to Sweden. Now, I was at the home game in Tala where Ireland were good. And they got a 90th minute goal. They rode their luck a bit. Last night, there's absolutely no doubt it was, as Jim Crawford said, you know, they defended a bit too deep at times, and
there was a definite penalty as well for Sweden.
Oh,
wasn't given.
A stonewaller. But I mean, they dropped some silly points early in the group away to Luxembourg that sort of that might hurt them. But the circumstances that they're in now, June the 3rd and June the 6th, they play Bosnia and Montenegro at home. If they win both of those games, and then Sweden don't beat Italy at home, and Italy are still very real possibility. Ireland are guaranteed at least a playoff, and that's huge. And I really hope that there was a big buzz around Stephen Kenny's under 21 games, but then I went to that Sweden game in November, and it was quite a small crowd in Tala, you know. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of buzz around going to grounds at the moment, as you know, like, you know, League of Ireland grounds and stuff are particularly in Dublin, are sort of heaving, and I hope for those 21 games that people come out. And because, yeah, they didn't play, as I said, it was not a vintage display last night for me. Like, great defensive courage, and they deserve like lots of praise, but I don't think it's the type of performance they would want, you know, going forward to be a sort of a template for what they do. But think of all the players that they're missing. Like, there's that at the moment, like there
was about 5 players there will be senior internationals that were still, if not more.
Like, when you think about it, I mean, Bazunu is still eligible, Parrott,
Ida,
Knight, Connolly. I'm not sure about Connolly. Has he gone beyond that? Obafemi, as I said, doesn't seem previously didn't seem up for it. And you know, there's others too. Like Darragh O'Shea is actually older now. I think he's 1999. But like there's other, Nathan Collins, you know, would be another one as well, who would be a big player, you know. So, and then add on top of that the fact that Ebosele couldn't travel, Will Smallbold from Southampton, who played in the Sweden game, he couldn't travel, Evan Ferguson, really exciting, couldn't travel. So like and I'm probably missing 1 or 2 and maybe longer term issues, so you're talking like upwards of 10-11 players missing. So that's why it's such a great result. And I mean, Anthony Elanga played for Sweden the last time in Tala, and he got promoted for the seniors this time, so it happens in other countries too.
Sure. But
particularly in Ireland at the moment, because there's a fast track into the senior team, there's a drip down effect. And the 21s and even the 19s by extension, like, they're not having Evan Ferguson when they normally would, you know. And this
and paid the price for it to a degree as well.
This goes all the way down. So that's what makes it really impressive. Like, to be fair, Kenny's 21s, he had a lot of those guys until McCarthy called a couple of them in towards the end, you know, Parrott and Aaron Connolly. But Crawford is dealing with a weakened hand relative to what he could have. And it's an interesting thing now, if in June Ireland end up not playing on the 14th of June, which is the last international window, if that Ukraine away game doesn't go place, and the 21s have a big game in Italy that day to get a playoff or even top the group in sort of a dream scenario. I mean, I don't think Crawford would like to affect the balance of a team that's used to playing together, but if he could get Parrott to pop along, or, you know, whoever it might be, to drop 1 or 2 of them into it, that'd be I think that'd be a discussion worth having, you know.
Yeah. It's an incredible, like, to be fair, we talk about them being backs against the wall, but the opportunities when they arose yesterday evening, they took them really well. Ross Tierney's in particular was a fantastic. It was a well worked goal to begin with, and a brilliant finish from the Motherwell lad.
Yeah, exposed lad, as you should be referring to him, really. You know,
John Kenny kept calling him that in commentary, and I was like, thanks, John. Keep whittling on.
Exposed. Yeah. Like, and maybe the fact that they had a lead to protect, it just naturally allows you to sit into their habits. I mean, I suppose people listening to this, watching this, like, well, okay, what are the names that stand out? I think the thing about it is, I mean, Conor Coventry is a very interesting player, talented player. He's also on loan at MK Dons after an unsuccessful championship loan, so there's sort of parallels with Parrott. Gavin Kilkenny there too. I think Mark McGuinness from Cardiff at the back is a real good player. And again, it's like, we don't need another defender, you know, like you know, we don't need another big defender who's come from the ball. And yet you're watching them and you're like, yeah, like he's really good as well. Yeah. And you know, you can come on and you're 8. So the only good thing about that from the Crawford's perspective is he surely can't get called up. So Omar Mamadali would also be eligible.
Another one in there, yeah.
Another one, like, you can just keep sort of naming them here, you know. So it's encouraging. I honestly just think that I hope that in June, and they're very important senior games, and of course I'm not saying someone who might come off the bench in a competitive game should be dropping back to the 21s, but I would hope that if there's a situation where someone definitely isn't going to be used, that they sort of look at it and think there's real merits of getting to a finals, because we haven't been in a 21s.
For a second there, I thought you were going down the route of having them play the 2 games in the one day. It was like that famous Mark Hughes day where he played for Wales and Bayern Munich
that's
in
probably
one day.
it's probably not. It's probably illegal now. You know, it's like, the game's gone. I mean, you can do that if you're inter-county footballers playing university and go down the county, and like it's all for the. That's all, I mean, that's mad. But like it's but it's all about passion or something.
Don't rule that out, Dan.
But I don't think that will happen. But I think if you end up having a lighter international calendar in June, I think it's something that should be looked at.
Yeah, and our football on Sky is, of course, our football on Off the Ball even is brought to you by Sky. Catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. Obviously our eyes were on the Aviva Stadium last night, and to a degree obviously before that in Barras, but the Harry Maguire stuff last night I found really intriguing, because the Manchester United defender obviously started for England in their game against Cote d'Ivoire, booed when his name was read out when the teams were announced at Wembley, booed subsequently for the opening few minutes as well, and this has obviously caught the ire of Gareth Southgate and several other players, teammates of his, calling it outrageous and so on and so forth. I mentioned this as a comparison later on. We're almost into Jason Lee territory now with Harry Maguire, where there's this snowball of, it seems to be the done thing that you have to kind of almost have a go at him, even if there's no grounding for it.
I just find it weird because, like, and I haven't followed this story very closely because we're in our own zone, but like you keep getting told that England games, the people who go to England matches are like the supporters of not the big clubs. And you see it, at tournaments and stuff.
There are Colchester flags, and Darlington flags,
and so I don't know. Is it just an element of this game who are just like, where are they tracing this to? Because Maguire has been fine for England. Like, he hasn't been a problem for them. He's actually at times he's been very good for them. Yes, he's having a bad season. Yeah, like, is he the most sympathetic figure with some of the statements and stuff like that? Possibly not. Has that contributed to a little bit of snowball effect of criticism, as you say? Maybe, but I can understand why they're all saying it's senseless, because like he's been absolutely fine for them. Like, they don't necessarily have an Irish style array of centre halves coming through. They'd love to have our depth, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not as if he's like, you can have reservations about him, but I would have thought, like, from the England fan base, it's just unusual. And you see, I mean, that has happened at times with certain players have come in for a little bit of stick from the England fans for whatever reason. I mean, to me, it just goes to show, like, how bored they must be a lot of the time, the England fans. It's just, life is just so easy. They're in the tournaments. They have a big focus at the end of the year. They've got a chance of winning it,
Very real chance.
A real chance. I do think so now. And so, I mean, what else do these friendlies exist for? It's like, well, I mean, is it just a reflection that people are just bored? Like, short attention spans. They can't remember that Maguire was good.
They need some kind of investment.
And there's something, but I think the backlash from other players and Southgate and stuff is fairly justified. I mean, in a way, at another time, an England manager coming out, hitting out the fan base could be contentious. But it's very hard to disagree with what he's saying.
Yeah, for those who missed it, here's a touch of what Gareth Southgate was talking about last night.
I thought the reception was a joke, absolute joke. What he's done for us, the way he's performed for England has been phenomenal. I don't get it. So we're either all in this together or we're not. And he's in an England shirt, and not only should you support a player in an England shirt regardless, but when he's played at the level he has and got us to put the performances in for us he has, it should be total commitment behind him. So I don't get that at all. For his performance, pretty faultless really. Stepped out from the back really well for the first goal. Was involved in the second as well. So, yeah, look, the team are totally united. We recognise everybody has difficult moments, but he's a top player and he'll come through it.
The quote-unquote justification I'd seen from some England fans about this online, which is never a brilliant gauge.
Yeah, I was wondering though, I'm interested in this.
I saw a lot of people, like, when journalists would go, "Oh, this is a disgrace," the replies were like, he's been crap for United, why is he getting picked? But if he has been, like, why are you booing him? It's not. It's like you're not booing that. Like, Southgate isn't going to turn around and go, "All right, I've made a boo boo here. They clearly don't like him. We're going to take him off." Like, they're only going to entrench the pro feeling towards Harry Maguire from the England bench even more so. And it's not. You're not going to help. You're not helping the player play better by booing him because he's been historically crap in recent, to use their parents, in recent games.
Yeah, I just think I think it is senseless. I mean, again, people pay their money. They're entitled to go on what they do. They're entitled to voice their unhappiness with it.
Is this England supporters' version of going out for a rake of pints?
But I mean, yeah, it was just it's just the fact that it was. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if one person boos and everyone starts joining in, and someone says I was saying boo earns or something. Do you know what I mean? Like this was sort of an instinctive reaction from a lot of people. Like, were they all sitting close together? I don't know. Like, it's just a bit odd. But again, I mean, sometimes the English news cycle, the English national team news cycle is like this. They just need some kind of controversy, and the fans have delivered it, because otherwise, I mean, things are pretty much quite good for them, and maybe this is actually has a galvanising impact. It's bringing the group closer together. It will, rallying around Harry, and then later in the year when it's like the real fans, going away from home or something. Harry Maguire, one of their own, come up through the lower leagues. A great story, like he actually is. Yeah. And he might, would it be the case that a lot of the fans who go to these games from these clubs, would they identify with his story? I don't know. I mean, seems to me odd. I mean, if they were playing a game at Anfield or even Old Trafford, England were playing a friendly there, you could understand it a lot more.
Yeah, it's just very strange.
Than a Wembley one.
I might be putting you on the spot with this one, Dan, but does an under-21 championships place, a texter asks, not give us Olympic qualification chance?
I think you have to finish. Yeah, it does. You have to finish, I think, in the top 4 of it. I think you have to get to the semi-finals.
Then are we in United Ireland kind of territory as well?
Oh God,
because it's not the Republic of Ireland that compete at the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we'd navigate that one, to be honest. I mean, we probably would have a couple of Northern Irish born players on the team. I mean, you have the choice, right?
Yeah.
You can represent, so it'd be the same principle that sort of applies.
Here's the cliffhanger. We've got more after these.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
The shape of your future is limited only by the power of your ambition. Now is the time to unleash it, to see where it will take you and what you can achieve. UCD is Ireland's #1 university for graduate employability, with master's degrees that open doors, led by academics and mentors who will guide and inspire you. To fulfill your unique potential and carve your niche in the world, visit ucd.ie/masters.
Hey Ireland, the spring sale has arrived at Zalando. Get ready for the new season with up to 50% off fresh styles that will see you through spring, whatever the weather. Visit zalando.ie to shop the sale now.
People expect their organisations to support their health and well-being. At Healthy Place to Work Ireland, we help organisations around the country to build, brand and deliver healthy and high-performing work environments.
We are committed to providing a healthy experience for all our people. Version 1 are extremely proud to be certified as a healthy place to work and would recommend this process to any organisation.
Could you be Ireland's next healthy place to work? Start your journey today. Visit healthyplacetowork.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch big games from the Women's Super League live on Sky Sports.
The avenues of that question just before the break has opened up as regards what an Olympic team would.
We're having Olympic debates off air.
We're actually planning flights is what we were doing more than anything
else. Maybe
we
should just host one. I mean, we can get one of our TDs on this again.
Hosting Olympics is fine. We've got a big space out in Abbottstown.
Perfect sense.
Let's absolutely build a stadium out there. It would be 100%. But even to talk about who's going to parachute into the under-21 squad if we qualify for the finals.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the possibilities are endless until clubs said that wouldn't happen. As I said, I'd just delighted to see them get to a playoff for starters. That would be tremendous, because that would be the
interest that would generate alone.
It would, yeah. Sometimes it clashes with senior games, and there can be a slight. It has to.
Yeah.
That is a slight issue, but it will be great to see it sort of get a little bit of profile.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Dan, thank you so much for coming in tonight. As always, this will be available as a podcast and all that kind of thing. Don't forget, tomorrow morning's OTB AM coming at you live from 7:30, and then the evening show as well tomorrow night. Nathan in the big chair. John Giles will be looking back on Ireland-Lithuania for you, and indeed the game with Belgium. That seems forever ago already, which is just...
When was that again?
About 3-4 weeks ago. And the prospect of Big Premier League action coming our way this weekend as well, which you can catch live on OTB Sunday. But thank you to everybody involved in the production of tonight's show. We'll be back with you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and indeed for OTB AM tomorrow morning at 7:30 on all your social channels. Have a good night.